Hi, everybody. Welcome to another spooky movie episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's reanimating the dead with me tonight?
I'm Bill Tucker, plagiarist.
I'm Tiffany Albertin. I got nothing.
And welcome back, both of you. So this movie was not my idea. This is actually thanks to the Patreon. You guys voted for this movie because apparently people don't like listening to me talk on a radio show.
We blame both.
I claim no responsibility for this at all. None.
It was
None.
your choice.
I claim no responsibility, and here's why. Because when I posited this, so for those who are on the Patreon who voted, and if you're not on Patreon, please do so. Patreon.com/ or just look up Games My Mom Found on Patreon. I got to pick two movies for this, and Tiff got to pick two. And Tiff picked Nightmare on Elm Street and Poltergeist, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Great movies. Classics of the genre. Excellent movies. I would have loved to watch either one of those. I picked The Witch.
So I.
I was actually looking. I might actually watch Nightmare on Elm Street again just because. I should watch that again. So I picked The Witch because I know Mike likes Silence of the Lambs and has a very similar vibe, a similar feel. It's kind of slow paced. It is terrifyingly. It's beautifully made. It's a great movie. But then I pick Re-Animator. Now, before I put on lists, I say, Mike, look, Mike. I want to put Re-Animator on the list, but if you don't want me to, that's fine because there's lots of triggers.
You could have vetoed it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Then I blame Mike.
Exactly. I bear no responsibility in this.
Responsibility. It's all your fault, Michael.
I gave Mike every opportunity to pull out of this because I would have then put on The Thing, which wouldn't have been as bad as this. The Thing is a classic, right?
That was my first horror movie.
Yeah, The Thing.
Nostalgic.
First one. So
I was 3, by the way.
Wow. I'm concerned about letting my son watch The Nightmare Before Christmas, and he's 5, and you watching The Thing at 3. So I told Mike, said there's triggery stuff in this. It's pretty extreme, but I think it'll make for a really good conversation and a good show. But you can get out of this. And he said, no, put it on. And I didn't think anyone would vote for it, but your listeners have great taste. They all voted for Re-Animator, and here we are where we're sat.
Yeah. You can. So I think I want to say you had warned me also beforehand. You're like, yeah, don't watch this movie while eating.
And he did not relay that to me.
I forgot.
So we're eating tamales, and I'm like, ooh, we should eat first. I'm like, ooh, we should eat first. I'm not usually squeamish, but I'm like, this is way too close to what I'm eating.
Yeah.
So we had to pause it and eat first.
This movie came out in 1985 also, and you can feel the 1985 all in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Lots of 85 in this, yes.
And we should warn, we might get into a few things about rape and sexual assault because there's
A few?
Well,
there's
one.
Lots.
Yeah, but there's this. Yeah. So you've been warned. We're also going to talk about
That was horrible.
brutality, I guess. People being murdered. So you've been warned. Okay.
You have been warned. Yeah.
You've been warned. All sorts of warnings, everything you can think of.
And don't watch the movie. That's a warning in there too.
No. Well, here's the thing, and we'll talk about it in length. I know, Mike, this was your first experience with Re-Animator. Tiff, have you seen this before?
No, I had never seen it.
Oh,
I was excited for it because it was on the list. I had never seen this one.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, sorry to both of you. Actually, no, I'm not, because you saw a great movie. I saw this originally. So when I lived in New York, and I might have said this story before on the show. When I lived in New York, I had a friend who worked at a bar in the meatpacking district. It was like a really kind of bougie wine bar. And for some reason, they were having a bad movie night, and she asked me to host it. So I got to pick two movies for this bad movie night, and there's like a trivia between the two, etc. I forget what the first one was, but then I picked Re-Animator for the second. And just based off of reputation alone, I have never seen it. I just, people say this is like a good, bad movie. 30 minutes in, it's being screamed in a public place, in a bar. People are trying to sip wine nicely and trying to just having a nice evening during this bad movie night. And of course, Re-Animator is happening. And 30 minutes in,
did anybody puke?
I don't know. It was the second movie, and in those days, I was drunk all the time. I was probably very drunk. I don't remember. I remember a lot of this because it sticks with you, but the circumstances I don't. 30 minutes in, though, I do remember saying, oh no, this is actually a really good movie. I mistakenly picked a good movie for a bad movie night because this is actually very, very good for what it's trying to do. But we will talk about it at length momentarily. So that was my first experience. Probably very drunk off of red wine, attempting to host a bad movie night at a wine bar in a meatpacking district. So that's what I did. This is actually an adaptation of the full title is H.P. Lovecraft's Re-Animator. Has anyone ever read Lovecraft before? We got Lovecraft fans here. I don't know.
No,
Not me, no.
Yeah, okay.
I stay away from his work. But,
for reasons everyone should be aware of. Yeah.
well, I just stay away from work because it's 18th century, I want to say, or early 19th century.
That's actually early 20th century.
Oh yeah, I'm 1900s. What am I, idiot? I just never got into it. I guess I was never given a book at the right time where I would have read it. And later on, I found out he was a racist asshole, and I've lost interest.
I was gonna say, it's also okay to say he's a published racist and xenophobe, and that's perfectly fine too. He's one of those authors that for some reason we haven't canceled. I don't know. I guess we just love ourselves some Lovecraft. But this is a adaptation, a very loose adaptation of Re-Animator, which I have read. Re-Animator is like C-level Lovecraft. It's not very good. It's actually a story that it was a series of stories he wrote for hire. He's got paid $5 a story, kind of just trying to pay the rent kind of thing. He doesn't like it at all. He didn't like the way it had to be framed and split up into 6 pieces and all that. This is loosely based. I mean, basically a guy reanimates bodies and body parts, and his name is West. And that's really the only ties it has to the source material. But this is also directed by Stuart Gordon. I believe this was his first movie. He went on to do a lot of different movies of this sort.
A lot of bad movies.
No, they're movies of a similar ilk. I guess you consider them bad if you don't like this sort of thing.
Oh, he did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
He did Dolls.
Oh, that's right. He did do Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That's right. Well, he wrote it. He didn't direct it. But he most famously after Re-Animator, he did From Beyond. So if you like this movie and you want to see more of the same, check out From Beyond. It's actually a little grosser from a body horror perspective, but there's no rape in it Oh, wait. There is rape. I shouldn't say that. There is lots of weird sexual stuff in From Beyond.
It's the 80s. I mean, I don't agree with it. It doesn't need to be in this film, but I get it because it's 1985 and Pornhub didn't exist at that time. So I guess you needed to get your weird kinks off watching this bad movie with a bunch of boobs all the time. So I don't know. I mean, come on, look how many boobs are in this movie.
It's not that many.
I don't watch a lot of movies from the 80s. I should put that out there.
My first comment was like, oh, they're trying to revive this lady, and all you see is her torso and her boobs. Like, you're not good enough to see her face, just your torso and your boobs.
That's a very good point.
Like, flapping as they're like, boom, boom, clear!
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right, dude. That
was like right in the beginning.
Yeah, that was the first scene, so.
And I think she came back, too. I think she was reanimated, I'm pretty sure.
Well, yeah, because she must have been, because she was in the morgue, so.
Yeah.
All of them got reanimated in the morgue. The headless scientist made it so. See all these weird things we're saying? This is actually... Now, here's my question before we get into the bits and pieces of this. No pun intended. Bits and pieces of this movie.
Boo.
Do you think... Boo. Yeah, hear loud. Boo. Do you guys think of it as more of a horror movie or a comedy?
I would say it's a horror movie.
Straight up horror. I didn't laugh. I didn't enjoy myself. I just wanted the movie gone.
There was moments where it was like it was so bad it was comical, but I would still find it a horror movie.
I would call it a horror comedy that's 60% comedy, 40% horror. In the vein of like an Evil Dead or something like that. I don't think it's as good as Evil Dead, but it's so absurd, but really well done. This is a really well-made movie for what it's trying to do. And again, we're going to go through it as we kind of go through the beats of it. And I think the interesting question is like, where is the divide between horror and comedy? I was talking about this with the Well-Read Mage on his Magecast episode. We were talking about Maniac Mansion. And yes, I'm going to correlate Maniac Mansion to Re-Animator.
Okay.
Not really. We were talking about the differences about why horror and comedy tend to have the same reaction. Like you go to a horror movie and people are laughing, right? That happens all the time. I had a dozen really good guffaws at this movie. Really good ones. And I think the linking element is surprise, right? Comedy is surprise and horror is surprise, right? You see someone's head pop off. You don't expect that. How does your body react to that? Usually with either revulsion or laughter, because what else are you going to do when you watch someone's head explode. So that's why I think this really works as a comedy, and there's purposeful comedy in this. Some of it downright slapstick and goofy Looney Tunes, but we will get all of that.
It's so bad.
Most of it involving the headless body.
The headless body is complete cartoon nonsense.
Okay, he is right though. If you think about like he puts on the whatever head he puts on and walks by the guy.
Yeah.
Is that you? Yep, that's me.
That is something out of a Looney Tunes, like Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig tried to get into the R-rated movie, dressing up in a giant trench coat on each other's shoulders.
Porky Pig didn't have his head cut off and put inside a jacket in a bowling bag with him in his bag. So.
But how good is that? Like his
that would have been funny.
That's great. It's again, go ahead.
But they'd be animated. This wasn't animated.
So it doesn't matter.
It's close, I'm sure.
It's just barely animated. Yeah, right. This is barely filmed. So this will be interesting as I celebrate all the fun things in this, and Mike just groans in disgust and says how much he hates it.
So, like the movie starts off like you're in a hospital. You're in Zurich, Germany, I think it was.
Yeah, in Germany. Yeah,
and it just like I'm like, okay, I got my attention, and you have this doctor. He's trying to help somebody, the Herbert West main character, and right away you have this guy that you don't know what's happening on. You think he killed the doctor. The guy's eyes explode into like just bloodiness. And the first thought I went through my head is, oh my God, I'm thankful Mike's not having to watch this crap.
I thought that too.
That several times. I'm so glad Mike's not watching this.
I said the same
thing. So mad.
I wouldn't let him. I would not have let Mike watch this. No, I mean, you're sensibilities. I know you won't like it. He would be very, very upset, and I'm like, I would no chance. I would not let him watch this. This would be like, no,
I was like, I think this might have been what we got to. And we're like, okay, we're done. We're gonna eat that later.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch this later.
I was like, we should pause this. No, it was they were doing something like drilling something in his head, and I was like,
yeah, that's right after this when he's drilling into the guy's head in the morgue. This is why this movie is so good. And this is an excellent open, right? It's establishing you within 5 minutes. Now, this movie got a very, very limited release. It was shown in some underground theaters. It was unrated. It never got rated. It did get rated eventually. It had to be cut down severely for rated R. It was never rated, but let's say you walk into a theater. This movie's letting you know in the first 3 minutes, this is what you're getting into. Hey, you ready? You see this head? His eyeballs just blew out of his head and his face exploded in blood. You cool with this? Because you probably still have time to get your refund. You still have time.
You should leave now.
To punch out and go eat dinner with the Albertins. The Albertins are dining. And that's a great choice. And it's actually one of the grosser things that happened in this movie as far as like visual effects. It literally works well. I mean, again, you get the eyes burst and just really, really grody. And of course, we have our wonderful, wonderful Dr. Why is my brain not working?
Herbert West.
Thank you. Dr. West, played by Jeffrey Combs, who is, I don't want to say genius level in this, but he is so good in this movie. It's astonishing. He's astonishingly good in this movie.
He does do a good job playing this character I didn't like.
Yeah. Well,
so he didn't like him bringing people back to life.
I didn't like anything about this movie. It had one good part for me where I was happy and wanted to get up and clap, and that's when the credits came. Other than that, I was just like, oh my God, get me out of here. But Jeffrey Combs was fine.
What'd you think about Jeffrey Combs as the Re-Animator? Sorry.
No, he was, I don't know. I don't think I have an opinion. It was the acting all over wasn't wonderful, but he did a really good job at his character.
He is gobbling so much scenery. He chews every ounce of scenery, and it is glorious. And that's kind of the tone of this movie, is why it works so well, is because all of these actors are putting everything they have into these roles. They are all working their ass off.
They want to get paid, okay?
Hey, listen, but you know what it is? And I think it's even more than that. I think a lot of that's credited to Stuart Gordon, and I don't know. This movie was made, speaking of paid, this movie was made with next to no money, comparatively. They had a budget of about $900,000, which is
a lot lower
nothing.
than I thought.
Yeah, I saw different things. Someone said 900,000, one said 2 million, but I think 900 is where they were at. And that is next to nothing to make a feature film body horror movie.
Even in the 80s, because horror movies you need special effects and you need a little more bank for that. And the makeup was just horrible. I couldn't stop talking about it.
Oh, it's across the board, not good. I mean, there's some effective, gross out stuff, but that's why I think this skews into the silly zone, because even all the gore and grossness, it's all extremely silly. And
like, I was okay with the blood and stuff, but it was the makeup. Like, one guy was flat out pink, and I'm like, what happened to this guy?
You kept complaining about that.
I was like, why is he pink? Like, did he get fried in a suntan bed? What's happening right now?
It's the first guy they reanimate.
The naked guy.
There are a lot of naked guys in this movie.
Completely naked. We made sure we figured that out.
Hey, listen, clothes cost money, okay? So
because I made a comment at one point when you have the first dead guy gets up and they reanimate him, which we'll get into, but I'm just like, oh no, he got something covered. I'm like, no, he's naked. And all of a sudden, yep, we see something dangling.
I was like oh, he's a grower, not a shower. That's why I couldn't see it.
It was just, because I mean, again, I'm not used to watching movies in the 80s because I have skipped a lot. Like there were a couple things that, especially in the early part,
alive, maybe.
that too. But like you have a scene when they go to the morgue early in this movie, and you see the security guard, and he has a cigar, and he's sitting there just smoking in a hospital. And I'm just like, well, yeah, that wouldn't fly now.
Exactly.
And I always love how people say, like, the 80s, the 80s were all neon bright and everything. Like, no, this was the 80s. When they're in that hospital, you have old water fountains that are just, the old white ceramic. I'm like, that's the 80s. That's a 70s style building or 60s style building that was renovated. That's the 80s that I remember. What little I remember of the 80s.
3 years? 90s. You remember 3 years of the 80s?
Yes, apparently.
Okay.
I remember the 90s. The 90s weren't that far off from that.
No. Yeah, and it's and we'll talk about also where the staging of things too is. So obviously they didn't have much to work with, and they do a lot of really good stuff. They do a lot of really good stuff with very little resources, and that's why I think this movie has a lot of energy and life to it. Yeah, I'm gonna say a lot of good things about this movie, y'all. I ain't got news for you, so just strap in.
Fine.
So then we get to the
bad things.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Just like you're allowed to like.
I do all the time in this show. This is one of them.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, also this is completely out of my realm of. Like, I don't like horror movies in general. Like, I was terrified to go watch The Nun in theaters on my anniversary.
Yeah,
honeymoon.
He refused. I was so upset. But he went to see both it, and he won't go see The Nun.
No.
Oh, the scary Nun movie?
Yes. Yeah. There's also a theater right next to a big giant boat. I think might have been haunted in Duluth, Minnesota, and we were staying at a hotel, and I'm like, nope, not happening.
No, oh, whatever.
So, I was not going for that. But so these aren't my kind of movie. Like, but also this movie, it shows you really early on what kind of movie it is. It's very quick, like we said, you have the naked boobs on the dead lady, and then you also have the girl that the guy's date, that one of the main characters is dating. You have her naked right off the bat because we have to.
It's Drew Barrymore from Scream.
It's not, but
it's Drew. She looks just like her character. She's dressed like her and everything. Google it.
So Scream copy this movie. What you're trying to say?
Yeah, maybe
possibly
for that one character.
Possibly. This is a very influential movie, y'all. I tell you, this is a cult classic.
And then you had the cat early on. I liked Rufus. I also think it's so funny, like how you have the little scene where he jumps by the couple early on, right before Herbert first shows up, which is the doctor guy that is the reanimator, and like the cat is there for a whole reason. Like the reason they mention the cat so they can bring the cat back a little bit later in another scene. Everything with Herbert is such a weirdo. When he visits the apartment, he's like, "Apartment for sale," and he pulls out the sheet of paper and the address was 666. I laughed at that. Yep,
it's a good bit. Dan, we can just talk about Dan and Meg real quick. Dan, who I can't remember he's played with, and of course Meg is played by Barbara Crampton. Dan was really in the book. He's like the narrator who's kind of following along the scientist on these crazy experiments. He's really meant to be the lead character. He is not the lead character of this movie. This is all Herbert's movie. It's all Mr. West's movie. He's kind of a pretty good, just, almost an audience surrogate, kind of just going with the flow and following things along. But he does good work, and Barbara Crampton's great in this movie. She really does a lot of good work. She puts up with a lot, There's some stories about that scene. Actually, we'll talk about that scene in length, but the scene that everyone's waiting for us to talk about, probably, that particular scene, she got the role to play. She got to play this role because the original woman who was cast for it, her mom saw the script and read that scene and said, "Nope, you are not," and pulled her daughter out of the movie. I mean, I don't know, she's a grown ass adult, but she basically said to her daughter, "No, you're not doing this."
I'm
That's
gonna
why
disown you.
I don't know. Yeah, something like that. She was put in, and she goes through a lot in this movie. There is some interviews out there about how she felt about the movie. I don't want to misquote it, but very interesting how she kind of like got herself kind of ready for that. Anyway, so she's good. So we got Herb comes in. He wants to get the apartment. He takes the tour, goes downstairs, sees the basement. Perfect.
Yes.
Here's some money. Boom.
My science lab.
That was funny. I thought his apartment was going to be in the basement too, like they were going to go down and there'd be a bed down there, but apparently he had a regular room too. I mean, and then you have like I didn't like the whole, like you have, so the girl that Dan's dating, Meg, was she the dean's daughter of the college they're going to?
Yes. She's the
okay,
dean's
and then
daughter.
she's like, "Oh, I'll marry you the moment you're an MD." It's like, really? You can't marry the guy until he's a doctor? Like, does it matter?
I think it was the minute you're out of this school, I'll marry you. Like the minute you're out of here, and it's not going to be weird.
Not under my dad's thumb.
What's called I
Right.
quit? Get a different.
Which is weird, and I agree with you. But that's also a very 80s kind of thing too, where nowadays you're like, oh, who cares? I don't know. I'm marrying.
Who cares?
Who cares, right? But that's kind of a little
Married
contrived.
you, didn't I?
Well, the thing is, the guy couldn't have been doing that bad. He had a decent house he was living in.
Yeah,
Whether he was
decent
renting or not,
house.
he was doing okay enough.
He was well regarded in the college. He was like an up and coming star of the hospital. They let him do CPR on people. Not well, clearly,
So is
but he
he
did
an
them.
intern or is he still a student?
He's like a third year medical student. I think they actually say that at some point. But he is a medical
We're
student.
sleeping.
Shut up.
She fell asleep in the beginning of this movie. The first half an hour, nothing's happening of this hour and a half movie. So she was sleeping.
Shut up. I'm tired, okay?
It was a hard day off. I know.
You should get on a bumper sticker. I slept through Re-Animator. Like that would be like.
The last hour I did not. It was just when they were like introducing the characters, and I still got a grasp of it, okay?
We got enough.
This movie is very simple. This is a very straight line plot. Like there
I
is
was like,
not a
maybe
lot
I
of complexity.
should rewatch that first half hour. Mike's like, I don't think you need.
No, you really don't. You can just. Well, he would have to watch it again, so that's probably half of that.
Were you awake in the first time when they're in class and you have Herbert West just breaking pencils to piss off the headless doctor later?
No.
Oh,
I'm like, what the fuck?
Okay, rewind that because that is one of my favorite scenes in this movie.
Just breaking pencils.
There comes a point too where we haven't had this yet, but we kind of breezed over it. But Herbert is introduced to Hill. Hill is like the lead surgeon, I guess, or leading surgeon dude at the college. He's basically the professor. He's the teacher. He's the published author. He's the expert on autopsies and brain death and all these sort of things. And him and Herbert get at it really quickly before the scene where he gets introduced to Herb, and Herb is basically like, yeah, everything you wrote is wrong. Everything you wrote is derivative from Dr. Gruber, who's the doctor that died in the beginning with the bulging eyes. Everything you wrote is derivative off of the Gruber. You didn't even do that right. And every line he delivers is with compunction and force and just like pure, like just, I don't know, force, and just he punctuates every line. It's so great. He knows he's right, and he refuses to listen to anybody else tell him otherwise. So Hill at this point already hates Herb, and Mr. West hates Hill. And they're showing how to autopsy, which is, this stuff always gets me. It's like surgery stuff. That grosses me out. It just always does.
But people coming back to life, that's okay.
Yep,
Well,
they're
they're coming back to life. It's the glorious moment of reanimation. It's the beauty of science. This is the point where you're right, Mike. He, as soon as Dr. Hill says, he talks about being brain death happens between 6 and 12 minutes after death. You hear snap. And you cuts to Herbert glaring at him with his snap pencil. And he says something again, and he snaps another pencil. This means Herb brought with him a stack of pencils. Now, if this was a Looney Tunes cartoon, there would be a stack of 50 pencils next to him just to snap every time Hill says something stupid or he doesn't agree with.
I did laugh when he's like, maybe you should get a pen. I did. I'm like, okay.
Good line.
It didn't take long for the movie. Like, this is the part where I was like, okay, I don't, because you get past this. They have the dinner where Dan is with Meg and talking to the dean. He's like, oh, we're gonna go have a study date, and I how the doctor, is like, oh, he says something weird, but I think he turns the dean on the fact that she's sleeping with this guy.
Oh, heaven forbid.
Well, they're Puritan. They make a comment how he must have been sleeping, where he's like, he's one of the last Puritans. I'm like, no, he's not. But and he makes that.
Who were they referring to?
The dean.
Oh, the dean.
He wanted his daughter was a virgin. He thought, she wasn't having sex early in that movie. No, that wasn't his daughter.
All right.
She wasn't even in that scene. They're having sex. So I mean, right there,
Yeah.
It's college. Come on.
Exactly.
But this is when it cuts back to the house and they're trying to have a study date and she can't concentrate. She's like, "Where's Rufus? He's always bugging me." And I'm just like, "Oh, I know where Rufus is."
Rufus.
And when she finds him in the fridge and she starts screaming, and Herbert's like, "Oh, I found him in the fridge and I put him in there. Did you want me to leave a note for you?" Like, I'm just like, he killed him, right? That's how I took it. Like, he killed Rufus and put him in the fridge.
I think so. I'm pretty. He says he didn't. He says he suffocated. His head got trapped in a plastic jar, which is the stupidest thing to say.
It was a glass jar.
A glass jar.
85.
His head. Thank you. His head got caught in the glass jar. He suffocated. And the line you're referring to is, I don't have the whole line in front of me, but he's like, "What's the note going to say? Cat's dead. Details later."
Okay, I did laugh at that part too.
Of course you did. It's funny. That's a properly written joke.
See, this movie didn't break me until a little bit later. I was like, okay, this is stupid, but it's amusing. Why am I watching this? That was going through my head. And then just when you have the cat start screaming in the middle of the night and Dan wakes up, and like the way that they handle this to me is like, I think I'd be a lot more freaked out if I saw my cat that just was dead in a fridge and not dead anymore.
His reaction to a lot of things, Dan, I'm saying, is not quite what you would expect from somebody who lives a normal life in normal society. Finding your dead cat in the fridge. And Herb actually gives a decent explanation. He's saying, "I found him that way. I didn't want him to stink up the joint, so I put him in my fridge. I was going to tell you. And what are you doing in my room, Barbara Crampton? What are you doing in here? I thought I rented a private room."
Apparently not.
And he also asked about the green goop, because the green goop is in the fridge. Yep. So we see that as well. And
so Tiff had called it one thing.
Kryptonite.
But for me, I kept thinking of the Hulk movie.
Super serum.
Yeah, I don't know why. That's just what popped in my head was from the Hulk movie.
No, because apparently it hurt people from Krypton, but it reanimates humans. We just didn't know that.
Oh. Okay.
And there's some, like, and then you have the whole basement scene where the cat is trying to kill people, kill them, and the whole Pet Cemetery, what I kept thinking of, and Tiff kept saying.
I just kept saying they just need to bring him to Pet Cemetery. Oh, you're okay.
And it's just so, like, it's comical and stupid. The cat's clawing his back. He throws the cat, and they beat the cat with, like, a baseball bat, and it's...
And, like, this horrible, like, stuffed / animated cat.
And then the end part of the scene where he takes the cat, he's like, "Oh, the cat wasn't really dead." And he's looking at, like, things all mangled, like, "It's dead now, right?" "Yeah, it's dead." "Okay." And he plugs it with the green juice just to prove his point.
Just to prove. But he was, like, split in half, wasn't it? Like, split
His
in
back
half.
was broken.
Yeah. And so then he just makes this awful sound. I can't
Wouldn't
even
you?
describe. Yeah.
I mean, just think about it. You broke your back. You've been beaten with things. You've been dead once. Now you're coming back to life again.
And didn't he say something? Or were you the one who said it, that rebirth is painful?
I think that was him. I don't think that was
a line
me.
in the movie. Rebirth
Yeah,
is painful.
rebirth is painful.
Rebirth is painful. That death was painful.
I want to go back very quickly to the
please.
scene because I do love how Mike is just hurtling through this. Like, he does not want to spend any more time in his brain.
No,
Re-Animator leaves to leave, and I'm just going to keep wrenching it back. I have to.
It's fine.
You were talking about when he's fighting the reanimated cat / stuffed animal they got at the toy store 5 minutes before the shoot. And you're like, oh, kind of half animated. No. It's just a stuffed animal cat that Jeffrey Combs is holding to his back and flailing wildly around with. He's literally holding the cat there. Like, it's the stupidest piece of not special effects, but for some reason it really does work in this.
Just move really fast and nobody will know.
Nobody knows. If you just go really fast, we'll blink the lights, we'll flash the lights, and you just flail around and smash things. No one will notice.
Do lots of cat sounds.
Yeah, no one will notice it's your dad's toupee that we've taped to the back of you. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But that's a really good example of this movie being unintentionally funny, but because they've already set up comic beats in here and really funny moments. So when you look at this is why I always label this is more of a comedy than a horror movie to me, even though it's really grotesque and really gross and has one scene that is, let's be honest, is objectively not okay. This is a very funny, silly B movie. This is classic B movie schlock.
Classic B movie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a classic B movie schlock. And if you approach it with that way, saying, the stupid stuff, I'm just going to take as stupid and fun. I'm here to have a good time. Even though I screened this in a wine bar, there were people watching it and laughing. Like that was my experience. People actually like giving us a good laugh. Me too. I'm like, am I just drunk? Probably half I was drunk. But the other half was because this is actually a very funny movie. And this is a great sequence of the cat. I love the fact that Herbert is stalking it with her croquet mallet. Like, literally, could that be any more Looney Tunes? Like, seriously. It was, I don't know, just a very fun scene. And, of course, the image of this, plastic cat going back to semi-life is really cements it to Dan, because Dan now says, wow, I can't believe you've done this. And that's how Dan becomes West's partner in crime and partner in science.
Well, also
How
because
does he just not be like, get the fuck out? Like,
that's what I would have done.
get the fuck out! I'm calling the no.
You just killed my.
I want to call the police because nobody would believe me.
You just killed my cat. If you kill one of my cats, you ain't coming back in my house.
Oh yeah, you gonna tell a story about?
No.
Okay.
Maybe not yet. We'll see. But so it's just so like I don't know.
Well, it's well, the thing with Dan though is because it is established at the very beginning that he's idealistic and he really wants to save lives. And Herbert tells him,
Yeah.
why can't we save lives after the fact, right? Isn't that like what you want to do? Like you want to save lives. He was doing CPR on that woman for way longer than he had to, and that actor and the doctor's like, look, she's gone. You have to learn. Sometimes you can do all you can do, and he doesn't accept that. So he's kind of in league with Herbert, because Herbert again has a pretty positive motivation. He wants to bring back people. He wants to bring people back to life. He wants to conquer death. That's a noble idea. Goes about it the wrong way. Very bad science.
How does this come to be? Like, does he have somebody specific he wants to bring back to life?
That's never explained. Yeah,
I was kind of expecting that he'd like have somebody specific he wanted to bring back to life.
He wanted to be famous. Yeah, he makes the point later on when the doctor is like, "Oh, I'm going to take it for myself. I'm going to be the one that discovered this." That's what he wants.
Well, that's what Hill wants.
That doctor.
Yeah, that's what.
No,
Hill
Herbert
wants.
kills him with a shovel because he was going to take away his discovery.
Because he was plagiarist. He was a plagiarist. Can't be a plagiarist. Nothing worse in science than stealing somebody's work.
Do with it. That's what I thought.
I took it that he was a stuck-up asshole, didn't want his thing being stolen.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you be a little guarded against your life's work? I think
bringing back the dead and killing people to bring them back, I wouldn't be like, maybe we shouldn't bring this out. Because if I start telling people what I did, they might not. Be like, oh, what a great discovery! We got a nice little padded room here for you. Come on in.
Just put this nice white jacket on, and we'll tie it in the back for you.
Well, I'm not arguing that he's sane. I'm not saying that he's like has all of his faculties with him, but I am going to posit that he probably does have a positive motivation in wanting to do this. And also, too, he wants to see the science through. He's a science guy, right? Sometimes you just want to see the science through. Can I do this for science reasons? Like Portal. For science sake. Aperture would absolutely hire Herbert West. Cave Johnson would be all about Herbert West.
Okay, I can agree with that.
Yeah, all about him. I think you fit right.
I didn't really like the part how Dan gets kicked out of school because he found out the dean's like, oh, he comes to the dean talking about about what they were doing, and he mentions Meg or something, so he like kicks him out of school. You're gonna lose your scholarship. Tell Herbert he's done. He's gone. Like I didn't like that part for some reason. It bothered me. I don't know why.
It's bothersome because it's just so vicious for really no reason. He's just being honest, like, hey, this thing happened. I've had this breakthrough. I want to explore it. And the dean wants nothing to do with this at all. And he is a complete asshole. Maybe we're just setting it up for us not to care that he turns into a shambling maniac for the rest of the movie.
Didn't bother me one bit. I was like, okay, good. You got what he did.
Yeah, me too. Good. You stink. That's probably what it was. It's probably just
okay.
They like that.
There was another part I laughed at when they go back to the morgue when Dan is no longer working there. He's not supposed to be at the hospital, but they're going in the morgue together, and the security guard is sitting there smoking a cigar and reading a porno magazine. And I was like,
is that the part where he's like, oh, I think I'm gonna take a little break? And I'm like, oh,
no,
really?
that's
With
later.
your porno magazine?
That's later.
That's later. But yeah, it's like, ew. What are you doing, sir?
I don't remember this is the part he's reading, but he's definitely reading Bourdain or whatever the hell that.
Yeah,
a real porno
that's a
magazine, I'm
boudoir or something. I think it's boudoir or something like that. Yeah.
I was just like, what kind of? But I'm like, it's the '80s, Mike. It's the '80s.
Yeah.
They didn't have apple bottoms back then.
I don't know what that is. I don't think I want to know, so I'm just gonna walk away from this one. But it was just funny to me. I'm just like, this would never work. I mean, just this little scene right here, him smoking in a hospital, you would never have in a current movie. I mean, we're not even talking about some of the other scenes that would definitely never be in a current movie, really. But like this scene in general, you would never have this.
No, none of this would ever. You'd never get enough time to go in and start messing around with bodies in the morgue. My favorite thing is he sneaks, again, Looney Tunes, sneaks Herb in, pretending that he's a dead body. I think the guy, I can't remember the guy's name, the cop. We'll just call him Cop. Cop goes to get his take his break, and his wink, wink, nudge, nudge break. They jump off. He starts Herbert starts tying his shoes, and Dan is getting nervous. He goes, "We're gonna get caught." And Herb goes, "What are they gonna do? Embalm us?" That's such a good line. So it's really funny. And of course, their goal here is to look for a fresh body. Well, not really a fresh body, just a body to experiment on.
It's less dead than the cat.
That's less alive. That's a little less mangled than the cat.
Yeah, I guess the idea was to find, one, to try it on a human, but they wanted to find someone that was in decent condition. Like, so they find a guy who's dead who died of a heart attack. So he's mostly in the idea that he's mostly intact.
That's the pink guy, right? The pink naked guy?
The guy that got apparently a lot of sunburn, yes.
Maybe he was skiing naked. Oh no.
Maybe he just has a rosy hue about him. Who knows?
I call makeup.
Yeah, it was so bad. I was complaining about the makeup the whole time.
It is pretty bad. No, it is. It's not great. He probably did himself.
This was just like when he gets up and he starts trying to choke them and stuff, and then you have the father walk in and just everything, like the way that he killed the father, he grabs him, push him. Well, first he squishes him with a door.
Well, hang on, I gotta stop you.
Okay,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tiff. Sorry.
I missed the squishing with the door part. I must have blinked or something.
It's like he said. He's been saying Looney Tunes. The guy's banging on the morgue door, and then the dead guy hits the door and crushes him on the door, and then jumps on the door.
Yeah, I know. Again, this is speaking of Looney Tunes. My man's here trying to roadrunner through this. I do want to lingo.
Slow your roll, Tootsie. Slow your roll.
Because you hate this so much. I get it. I get it. I don't want to spend time with things I hate to. This is I do like, because the setup here is really interesting, because they're in the morgue and the plan is not to get a body out, because that's what they do in the book. They're always getting bodies from places and then taking it back to a lab and experimenting, and things happen. They're going to do it right then and there. What did you think was going to happen if you succeeded? Are we going to walk out with the guy? Like another two people? Oh, 2 doctors were in there. Let's take this body out.
He was in here when we came in.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what did you think was going to happen at this point, given all the data you've collected thus far? I don't know why Meg is there. Like, why is Meg there with her father? His dad is there. The dean is there looking for Dan, because evidently he needs to be sent to the moon, because for all the malfeasance he's committed in his life.
Yes, he slept with his daughter.
Oh yeah, he's got to get out of the school. He's got to write a letter of apology. He's got to say sorry to the president. He's got to get kicked out of the hospital. We're gonna throw him in the brig. It's like
she followed them there because she was gonna go see Dan, and then she's like, "I didn't come with you. I met you here."
Was that stated? I don't.
Yeah, there's a line about it when she then
okay.
And then he ends up making her stay at the front desk.
That's right. Okay. Well, that was explained then. Very good. The moment when the red man just sits straight up is a classic moment. You see that in trailers. It's the great moment of. And yeah, like you said,
great. Okay.
That's great. That's very great.
I mean, at least he was in one piece. Okay. Versus the cat who's.
He's one piece for now.
For now. Now.
So this is so then you have, of course, your big air quotes battle, like you said, Mike. The reanimated knocks over the door and smooshes Dean with the door, the big heavy metal door. Very comic, very actually kind of funny. Almost dies, but Herb saves the day with a bone saw, puts it right through his chest. The reanimated looks down at said bone saw with this look of surprise and awe. Like, oh,
shit.
Yeah, whoa.
I didn't like this.
And then blorp. That's the end for him.
I didn't like it at all. I was like, "Ah." I mean, you could tell how fake it was. It looked like clay popping out of his chest, but still, I'm like, "Ah, I don't like this."
But that's the sign of good movie making, because even though it is literally probably clay things coming out of someone's body, so on a prop somewhere, it works, right? And what I really like about this movie from just a set perspective, a lot of this movie's violence happens in broad daylight, not daylight, in fluorescent lighting, so which is really harsh and bright and cool. So it's actually pretty rare to see that in horror movies, because usually it's in the shadows because you're trying to hide things, and
Lights are flickering.
yeah, like you're trying to hide things with your special effects, right? You're trying to hide effects with darkness and shadows. This movie
They just wanted to show us how bad their special effects were.
well, and I think they're like, no, this needs to be in a hospital. The lights are on. There's no reason for these things to be flickering. We're just going to do this in the broad and bright lights, and that makes this blood and this gore really striking, because I don't think we're used to seeing all that stuff in vivid color. You know what I mean? Like, it's so striking, that that red against white, really striking and scary. You know, it's pretty scary, and it's effective. Like, if you're watching it, you're in, right? And I think, of course, you watch it as now on a big old
I was okay with the blood and gore. It was pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of blood. I feel like there's an excessive amount of blood coming from people's mouths for unknown reasons.
For literally no reason. No, there is
no reason.
It was a cheap special effect. Here, put this in your mouth. Blah, blah. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Not what we film. All right.
Like, yeah, we reanimated you, but why are you bleeding from the mouth?
There's actually a famous note on the amount of blood in this movie. Whoever the director, it wasn't Stuart Gordon, but one of the crew in charge of that sort of thing said the most he's ever used on a movie before Re-Animator was 2 gallons of blood. In Re-Animator, he used 23. So your note about blood is correct. There's a lot of it.
It's just like for no reason too, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's bleeding from the ears. He's like, why though?
23 gallons. Think about how little you need to make something be really
everywhere. Effective. And a lot of it had to do with the head, I think, later on, that I'm sure we'll get to.
We're getting there. So,
we're getting there.
And this is when Dr. Halsey got choked out by the pink dead guy. After he gets crushed by the door, they choke him, he dies.
Yes.
Is that how he dies? I thought they broke his neck. No, they choked him.
No, he chokes him and throws him against a wall, I think.
Yeah. And
yes, that's crunch.
Correct. Yeah. And then this is when they get the idea, we're going to bring him back to life.
Just died. He's fresh body.
And they inject him with the green stuff. And I think this is when the security guy calls the police. He drops his magazine, he drops his magazine later and runs. So he didn't have, but still. And this is like when, doesn't Meg walk in too?
Yes, this is when he walks in to find her dad.
Just like I'm just like, and he's like, oh, it's gonna be okay. Don't mind you, idiot. Like, maybe next time, like, I gotta go. See ya.
Of course, Herb has that amazing line. He says, when when the dean starts reanimating, he says, "Welcome back to life." So, every delivery is just
very
stunning.
Frankenstein in certain moments.
Then they put him in a straitjacket.
Well, because
he's acting all crazy, but he's dead.
More blood. Like, he bats his head against the wall and blood.
It was just so weird. And I forget when it happened, but there's a scene not that long around this point when the doctor's talking, I think, to Wes, and he's like, we both know what his problem is. He's dead.
Yeah, that's much later on when we get...
Okay, that was later. I couldn't remember when it happened. I had my note. He's in a straitjacket, and I have this is when Dan tells Meg what happened.
Well, you jump.
Yeah. So welcome back to life. The dean grabs everyone's neck. Meg walks in, and the dean responds.
The choking. That's what the choking was in my
choking,
notes.
Yeah. So Meg walks in, and the dean actually responds. So the cop then arrived. The dean is cowering in the corner because he was just reanimated, so he still has more of his mental faculties with him, which is interesting, and that prompts. Well, actually, what prompted Herb to try again was that the pink man, let's call people by their colors, the pink man actually responded when Herb said, stop. He actually stopped for a second, which gave Herb enough. He's not just an animal. He actually has a little bit of his faculties left. Clearly, the dean has a lot more. Herb then gives a completely ham-handed excuse for what happened here. Okay, so I didn't forget what it was. It was ridiculous. And everyone goes, oh, okay, well, sounds reasonable. All the blood splattered everywhere. He just went insane. He came down, and what about him? We were working on him, and it's just the excuse that he gives is completely ridiculous. But everyone just goes, "Oh,
saw through this guy's chest just because."
That's right. Just testing out the veracity of this bone saw.
I mean, how did they not get arrested in this part? I really feel like the next scene should have been in prison. That was the end of that.
Because they all pointed at the crazy guy, said it was all his fault.
Yes, this naked guy that you can tell he doesn't. He's been alive this whole time. He snuck in here and killed him. Yeah, okay.
It's so stupid. And again, this is movies got movie, but you're right. This is a huge. Come on.
Don't worry about that toe tag on his foot. He put that on himself. Yeah.
Yes, this is an Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is not the plot you're looking for. And just move on. Just move on. The next scene we have is when we're in the padded cell area. Evidently Hill's office has a adjoining padded cell.
Yeah, okay, that
is for his guests, I guess.
Later, though.
I was like, what the fuck? What kind of office is this?
I know, when I saw that, I was like, wait a second, that's his office, and that's the padded room where the dean is.
I have my own padded room to throw in people I don't like if I want to watch them. I even have a TV right next to the window, too.
And this is a one-way mirror, making sure I'm completely anonymous and no one can tell what I'm doing at any time. This is kind of where he explains. He kind of explains he wants to do exploratory surgery. He wants to help her father any way he can. Meanwhile, he knows at this point you were once dead, and he kind of realizes Dr. West is up to something. Herb is up to something. This is also when he. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He said it's To Kill a Mockingbird all over again. Mike doesn't get that joke.
I don't get it. I've never seen Kill a Mockingbird.
When I saw his face, I was like, oh my god, it's gonna fall flat.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
They lobotomize people in there.
Oh, yes, they do.
In the 50s or something,
right?
That's
what they did in the 50s.
It's like that era, yeah.
Okay, anyways, go on after I explain my jokes.
That's fine. The best jokes require an explanation, I guess. Right. Meg kind of resigns herself to sign the waiver, like, yes, go ahead and do what you gotta do to my dad.
I skipped a lot.
But then, you
remember, I guess I wasn't paying attention because I write notes.
This is an important part here because the first part we find out Hill is a little, horny on Maine. We find out that during the toast because he refers to Meg as like the jewel of the crown of blah blah blah, like something a horny old man would say to a young woman to try to get them, amorous. I don't know. And then he actually starts to move in with Crazy Dad in the padded cell. Like he kind of has a little move in moment. Crazy Dad, blah, nice little jump scare against the glass, breaks up that moment. Which Meg is like, no, I'm going to take this on my own hands. I'm going to figure out what's really happening here. I don't trust you. But these are all really important little tidbits to get to the scene that everyone talks about for this movie. And yeah, little gritty.
And this is when he tells her what happened, what really happened to her dad.
Yes, this is when Dan kind of spills the beans, what happens. He's not insane. He's actually dead. And she says, tell me everything.
This is the part where he should be going to prison.
Yes, this is the part where he should be going to jail. Yes. Instead, this is when Hill shows up in the basement. Now, here's my question. I don't know where Dan is. Is Dan at home at his house when Meg shows up?
No, I think he went to Meg's house.
Okay, so he went to Meg's house, which is why Hill was able to go to his house and show up in the basement while Herb is working.
Yeah.
He knows that the dean is reanimated and he wants Herb's work.
Oh my god.
Go ahead, Mike. I'll let you take this.
This part was just so I mean, so you have the doctor, he comes in and he goes in and he's looking and he tells West, "Oh, I'm going to take your thing and I won't tell the cops what you did, that you're a murderer and I'm going to take full credit for this." And so he's looking through this. He's like, "Oh, I know what that is." And he's looking through a microscope and he puts a little bit of that green juice on a dead cells. And he's like, "Oh," and then Herbert you just see him taking like a step back one at a time, all stupid like. And I'm just like, and then he goes for a shovel. And of all the things to kill someone in a basement, and there's a lot of weird ass things in this basement, he grabs a shovel and he cuts off his head. No, he smacks him back in the head. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And then he starts.
I thought that's what it was. That was it.
Well, that comes after. He hits him in the back of the head with a shovel, and then he starts chopping at his head with a shovel.
Like, I mean, how realistic is that, though? because this guy's kind of little.
I've never hit a head, so I can't tell you. I've never committed murder.
That shovel don't seem that sharp.
I mean, I have tried to take a shovel and hit dirt, and I've had issues, so I can't see it.
Being that real.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I've hit rocks and, okay, I can't go anywhere. And yet this guy just cuts through and bone, like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not a physician, so I can't tell you how effective a spade would be against a soft tissue of a neck. But I do know that this is a really excellent scene. Like, this is great because the tension it builds up, right? Because you have the doctor, he's looking at through the microscope. Hey, yes, my work will make me famous. And I love Hill's reaction when he I think he says cat tissue. He puts it on a little microscope, drops reagent. Doop, doop, doop. Again, just so controlled. His control is so good in this movie. And he backs up slowly, feels for a weapon, finds a shovel, and just the pacing and the way this just executes literally is so glorious. Like you said, clunks him. Here's where this movie really does a beautiful job. Clunks him in the head, right? He falls down. You see the shot, basically, it's from, I guess, Hill's perspective looking up at Herbert as he brings the shovel down on his neck. Now, what most movies would have done is shovel goes down, the blood spurts up, and that's it, right? You go, okay, ooh, that's grisly. What does this movie do? It reverses shot as you see that spade going into his neck, Hill staring up at him, blood just glorping out everywhere. And that's when you know, if you haven't learned already, this movie's going to go for it. And this movie is not going to stop going for it ever. So now too late, you've given your money to the theater. You're not getting your money back at this point. So sorry, tough luck. It's such a well executed scene because it is surprising. And then, of course, the final shot is that super low angle shot of the head bloop, just kind of rolling off. Clearly, that's somebody next to the body rolling a fake head, obviously. But it works so well in context. It is really just a beautifully executed scene.
You get to a part that made me shake my head when he grabs the head off the ground. And he tries to put it in the bin, and it keeps falling over. So he grabs a thing where you stick sticky notes on, like a stabby.
I thought it was a meat thermometer.
No, it was a thing for post-it note that you would stab on or put your hand through.
Yep.
It looked like a meat thermometer.
And he puts it in the bin.
It did. To me, it looked like a meat
I like that. That's good.
To me, that would make more sense.
But that wouldn't have a circle part at the bottom.
Yes, it does. Like if you flip it over.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's
but
like
not strong enough to hold a head.
Why not?
Because it's a small circle.
A turkey butt.
Yeah, then you take it back out. I mean, or when you go to Arby's and you work there, you shove it in the big meat and take it out.
I've seen some where the dial is like that.
Well, the movie didn't know about that, so they had a paperweight.
Well, I'm just telling you.
You do realize what we're arguing about, right? We're arguing whether a meat thermometer or a post-it note holder would be the best implement for holding a human head. That's what Re-Animator does to people in conversations. It brings people together in the important things.
He shoves the head on there, and I'm just like, what the hell? And then he brings it back to life.
So hard. I laugh. That whole scene when it's just falling over. And again, this is why this movie, I'll say it 100 times. I'm going to say 100 times more. This is a comedy more than a horror movie. These things are really funny. And the gore is so silly, so over the top. All you can do is just laugh. That's why I think... And depending on your sensibilities, right? But I think this is, if you were to categorize this movie, you would have to call it a horror comedy in the vein of like an Evil Dead.
It's like you were getting more into this movie. Weren't you, Tiffany, then?
Yes.
Okay, where I was checking out, you were like, okay, getting interesting now.
Well, because in the beginning, I was like, I thought it was Re-Animator. Where the fuck are the zombies? Like,
oh, they were coming.
I think I was starting to get bored, so I was like, come on now.
The budget was only so big. They had one day to shoot, so everybody get naked, throw the makeup on, we got one day to shoot.
Blood on you. But I don't understand is why the head detached from the body could still talk and coherent thoughts, but the man that had the head on his body couldn't.
Because he was dead longer.
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. I'm
talking about the dean.
Oh.
Yeah, the dean. That's a very good point.
Well, here's my explanation.
Reagents, different dosage. Maybe you gave him a little more.
I got a better theory.
Go for it.
Movie's just stupid.
The script said so.
Okay, that
too. That was Bill talking.
Yes, it was. God, everything with like... Okay, I was not expecting when he starts reanimating the body that's not attached to him.
Like, why did he do that?
Because science.
Science.
Because science. And
you
this is actually
that would like backfire.
well, he didn't know. And that's actually a really cool beat because he's sitting there, plops the head down, and stick it into this little thing to hold it. And he's looking at the head and he goes, what would happen in his brain? What would happen if I tried to reanimate the head and the body separately? Probably thinking, would the head still be able to control the body? What's going to happen? This is called science. It's called experiments. And hey, think about it this way. When else are you going to get a freshly severed head to practice this on? This is a once in a 5
that head so he could go out and sever somebody else's head.
Basically. Well, he even says it. He even says that when he's arguing with Dan on whether or not they should reanimate the dean in the morgue. He's like, what other opportunity are we going to get a body this fresh aside from killing one ourselves? Because that's clearly in his brain. Like, if I have to do that, I'm just going to have to do that because he's obsessed with the science. And he's a crazy person.
But it's all for science.
It is all for science.
I didn't realize he injected the body. I thought the guy was just controlling the body telepathically or something.
No, he ejected the body and the head, and they both start kind of doing the shakers.
It was funny when he walks over and takes his head and bangs him into the desk and knocks him out.
Right, because he didn't see that because he's trying to interrogate the head, you see. And
Maybe
he goes,
did that before he reanimated the body.
He probably didn't expect him to be able to through, I don't know, I would say telekinesis, but that's not right. Whatever, telepathy, be able to control his body still, even though it's not connected. That's silly and supernatural, but
yeah, I didn't see that coming.
You know what? If you saw a lot of this coming, any of this coming, I'd be concerned. Like, you're not supposed to see any of this coming. This should be telegraphed very well.
I love how he talks to his body like it's a person. You idiot, over here! No, what are you doing?
This is where. Hang on one second. Let me just make sure.
Okay, something to do.
I think I skipped.
While he was hiding underneath the table with his head inside a bucket.
Yeah, that's why they use so much blood in that scene.
Well, I mean, that's every scene that you notice where his head is decapitated. It's either you see the back of it, or if you see the front of it, the camera is only from the chin up, or it's on the table in the bin.
One split second where it's up a little bit and you can see the hole. I pointed out to you and you ignored me.
Oh, you can? You mean the hole that the actor's actually clearly just sticking his head through to make it seem like... Yeah.
It's just for a split second, but I was like...
And nobody watching this movie is thinking, nobody should watch this movie for special effects, because nobody should sit there and go, how did they do that? That's amazing. How did they do that?
So the part where he has the blood, which I'm not sure where he got the blood from...
It was in... go ahead, sorry.
The body, so the body, headless body.
I'm talking about a little later.
Is this later?
It's when the body takes the head, leaves the place, goes back to the hospital. Well, I know we're jumping. We'll go back to it. But
I jumped it. I'm sorry.
That's where he has a blood pack in the fridge for some reason. Has a blood pack in his fridge and shoves it in the container where his head is.
But when he was pouring, I thought he was feeding him the blood, and I'm like, a little closer, you're missing its mouth.
I guess when your head's detached, you don't have to eat through your mouth. You just put your neck in it. You're just like, oh yeah.
He's basically a plant. He's basically a plant at that point. His little entrails are roots, and it's just gonna slurp up the bloody goodness.
I forget where they were, but there's somewhere where Dan was. Where I put in my note, boyfriend finds out doctor was a creeper. Where the guy had hair from the girl in a book.
No, it was in a file, wasn't it? In a
file, yeah.
It's in a file. So basically,
I pay attention sometimes.
This is your kind of movie.
Because Megan and Dan go to Hill's office to find out the secrets behind her dad, being crazy, and that's when he discovers the file of creeper clippings, which are like newspaper stuff and hair and all this really weird stuff. Again, signaling Hill is obsessed with Meg. Here's a problem with. Okay, I'll save this for the moment, because all of this is designed to lead up to the moment that we're all leading up to. And this is the only reason this stuff is there, which is why I don't love that scene. We'll talk about it when we get there. But anyway, that's what happens there, and then.
This is when you have Dan goes back or at some point the dead guy took everything, and he finds West, wakes up West. And then this is when you get to the scene we were talking about with the blood, and this is also where, as I put, Dr. Hill's body injects Dr. Hill's head with the more green stuff, kryptonite.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And like you're saying too, Tiff, when Headless Hill and
like
is just stumbling around the office trying to find his blood pack. And he's kind of rolling his eyes like, oh, stupid. This is pure slapstick Looney Tunes nonsense.
Why is there a blood pack in his fridge?
You know, you never know when you need one.
You don't know.
Or maybe he's a vampire, but
stepped on your joke. I'm sorry. What did you say, Tiff? I stepped on your joke.
I said maybe he was anemic. We don't know.
That's right.
Maybe he was going to a rave later that night, so he had the blood ready to go.
Nice. Oh, and it is October, a Blade reference.
Oh, by the way, that song from that Blade is 10 minutes long.
Oh, of course it is. It was as was the style of the times. Anyway.
Yeah, because I actually one time on Spotify that song came on and it was 10 minutes long and I couldn't skip it because I ran out of Spotify skips.
No, oh man, that's a lot. That's a lot of time to hear. That's a very long time.
Yeah, it's terrible. But so the part where like heads this hill goes to the morgue, and this is when you walk by the security guard. We were talking about earlier. This is when he's reading the porno, and this is the scene where he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go take a break." Oh, and I'm just like, "Fucking movie." And this is like, but it was funny how he takes like a demo, or not a demo, but like a model head that's missing half the head because those are the parts that come off to how the brain works, which he shows earlier to Meg to show what he's going to do to her father, which, you know, that's how you that's how you get a girl interested in you.
I was waiting for the guard to be like, oh, you dropped something, because when he walks in, his ear pops off.
The doctor had more important things the security guard had more important things to handle.
I know. I was waiting for it though.
Break time.
That's this whole movie.
Also,
I was waiting for, excuse me, a drop. Oh, it's in here. Oh dear.
But also, what kind of jobs? Like, you know what? You want to look at porno at job? We don't care. It's fine. You want to smoke in the hospital? Feel free.
Making a deposit at the sperm bank.
I'm surprised he didn't have a freaking beer next to him too, or a bottle of vodka or something. He's like, oh man, I love this job. I get to read porno and drink and smoke. Oh man.
Big old Tony Montana thing of coke in front of him, just like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't see above my large mountain of cocaine. Hey, you need to get into the morgue.
He's a terrible security guard, by the way.
Oh, I wrote in my notes. He is not very good at anything.
It was so stupid. And then you get the scene where Dan goes to Meg's house and he's trying to convince her to stay, which she's like, I don't know if I can be with you anymore, or something like that. Stupid. I'm like, the guy just pretty much killed you or got your father killed, brought your father back to life. I don't think I'd want to be with him either.
That whole scene was so stupid because she
Very
said,
dumb.
I don't think I can be with you anymore. Yeah, you're right. We should be apart. And then they ended up like kissing.
It's extremely dumb. I don't.
Or something. And I'm like, what just happened?
They were about to like embrace. It really wasn't clear until Daddy Dearest just smashes in. Actually, I jumped at that. I actually had a woo. Yeah, that caught me. That caught me by surprise. And of course, attacks Meg because he is a crazy monstrosity that's been has been lobotomized yet. I think he has.
Yeah, he's been lobotomized, and this is when, I don't know if you find out, but Dr. Hill had figured out that he could control lobotomized zombies.
Right. Somehow through science, sure.
Plot,
great.
The script.
The script.
Yes, the script said so let's just go with it. Yeah. Don't think too hard about this one. Again, B movie requires you to not think as hard. Like when you see that, it's like, I'm gonna put my brain away for 90 minutes.
And then I think we're just about the worst part of this movie.
Yes, we are.
Okay. And this is when so they kidnap the girl. Somehow he brings her all the way from her house to the morgue, and nobody calls the cops because apparently there's no police in the city. No, they're busy.
That's a good point. I
mean, a guy carrying a girl in his arms that's knocked out, covered in blood. You know, somebody would have called the cops.
I don't think he would have made it. You're right.
Also,
you're so right. You're very right.
Dan and Herbert would have been in jail the whole movie. So, you know, after that first thing in the morgue, they've been done. Okay, you're in prison.
Very true. Very true.
Oh, he brings her to
ended up in the psych ward.
Or somewhere. They wouldn't have been at the hospital. I mean, they wouldn't be like, hey, go back to your basement and continue your experiments. Okay, crazy guy? That's completely fine.
See where this came from.
We believe you that the guy just had the hole in his chest the whole time. It wasn't you with your fingerprints all over this bone saw that shoved it into his heart. No, that wasn't you. You weren't wearing gloves. No, we don't got your fingerprints. And this is when he brings the girl to the morgue and he starts having her father, the dean, start stripping her.
And strap her to the table, but do they have that in morgues? Do they need to strap bodies to the table? That was what I was like, wait, what's going on?
That is an excellent question.
Strap dead bodies to the table?
That's a very, very good question. I'm going to say probably no. But then again, I'm not I was a mortician, but
no,
probably not. Yeah, probably not. That's really funny. I didn't even think of that. I was too concerned about the scene coming. I've seen this.
I had no idea. You clearly did. I had no idea.
Well, he'd seen this movie. I mean, because it was before we talked about this movie, or before I had ever watched it. You had mentioned that this movie had a scene in it that was just completely did not need to be there, and it's a scene that would make this movie not work in any type of in today's world. It shouldn't have worked in 1985, but 85. I mean,
it wasn't rated. They were okay.
Well, it's kind of a rape scene, but it's also a really weird, strange rape scene.
But she gets her hand free, and Mike's like, "Why isn't she beating him up? Why isn't she pushing him away? She's just sitting there."
He's a head, just grabs the head. I don't know. I didn't like it either. I didn't like anything about it. But I didn't like. I'm like, she just, and then they take the head and he starts sucking the nipple. I'm just like, what the fuck are we watching?
Yeah, it's. So how did you guys feel about it when you were watching it? I mean, other than the obvious, right? What was your take on it?
You made a comment that made me laugh. But.
Well, I didn't see it coming. I was like, oh, I'm surprised they didn't go for. Oh, yep, there they go. Yep.
Well, for the nudity scene, you made a comment.
What did I say? I forgot.
You said, "Oh, she really is blonde."
Yeah, that's right. I forgot.
That's very funny. That's really good.
He said, "Oh, we're all nude in this one." I was like, "Oh, yep, she really is blonde. That's good."
Wow.
I'm just like, okay.
Well,
I was not expecting that. I mean, I'm used to movies where, especially later on, you don't get full nudity very often in movies. I feel like later on, but this is the 80s, so I guess it was more.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I've seen movies recently that have that. Yeah.
You don't see the bush very often.
No, you don't, and that is kind of a rarity because they have to be very careful with that because of them for ratings reasons and all that. So
yeah,
they tend to steer clear of it because honestly, what's the point? But then a lot of indie films or independent stuff or foreign stuff, you'll see that more. But anyway,
it wasn't necessary. And then they moved the head in between her legs. I'm just like, what the fuck movie?
Go ahead.
It wasn't necessary. None of this was you could just have her tied up on the table, you strip her naked, and call it scene and keep going. You didn't need anything else. Of course,
there's still blood pouring from his mouth when he's kissing and touching her, and I'm not the scene isn't bad enough.
Everything with this scene was just completely unnecessary, and just you could easily just cut it, and the movie would be just fine. But again, it's the 80s, so
I agree with you. I agree. Actually, I think this is unnecessary. I think. If you're going to do this is a very carefully done scene. It's very careful, even though it's extreme, right? This is the movie saying, I'm going to go as far as I can possibly go. We're going to push it as far as we go. We're going to push the shock on this, and we're really going to horrify people. This kind of scene is when you get into the conversation of context, right? Where is this living in a movie? Because we all know that rape is an absolute evil. Mm-hmm. That is never, ever okay, and is objectively a bad thing, right? So now that becomes the question is can you make something like that, put it into a movie with the right context and make it okay? Not good. I can't say good, but make it okay.
If it fits the story of a movie for what you're trying to tell and it's a meaning that you're trying to get across, sure, you can have something like that then.
But it wasn't necessary.
No, not in this. I mean, I'm thinking the movie, which I have not seen. I don't know if it's in there, Promising Young Woman. I'm assuming it has a scene like that in there. But I mean, it can work in Veronica Mars. In the show, you have a scene where you don't see it, but she does get raped, which ends up playing to the story about how things are affected.
Right.
And it at least it shows how damaged she is and what it did to her and how she's different than where she was in the first two seasons. Okay, but this was just for shock, like you said, shock value and creepiness.
Yeah, and I agree, and I actually really do agree with you. There's a movie out there. There's a movie called Irreversible, foreign film. I've never seen it because the opening of it is at 10 minutes, I think. And if I'm misquoting, forgive me, listener. But it opens with a rape scene that's extremely realistic. This is a drama. It's a drama movie, and of course, the movie again after this scene, it's basically about how this woman deals with it, and it's supposedly a very, very good movie. But it opens with this very graphic. I think it's 10 minutes long. Rape scene, and let's look. Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Orange has a lot of that in it, and that's one of the top 100 movies ever made.
Me too.
It's a hard watch.
It is. I tried watching it a few years ago, and I had to turn it off. And that doesn't happen very often with me in movies where I'm just like, nope, we're done. Movie off.
It's funny. Not to get too off back. I've actually seen that movie. I won't say dozens of times. Yeah, maybe dozens of times. I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick fan. Tried to watch it when it came on Netflix a couple years ago, and I was like, oh my God, I think my sensibilities have changed. I can't do that stuff. Yeah, it's just things change, right? Which is just things change. Anyway, so Irreversible has this scene in it, right? It has a rape scene. Now, you may be able to say, okay, that's really hard and not okay, but it supports the story that it's going for. In this scene, you have a headless man. You have a headless body tilting up a head, a talking, laughing, dancing head, and performing a sexual act. Almost doesn't quite go down, doesn't quite get there. Herb saves the day and saves the movie by doing so. Because if the head committed that act, that would have been like the big line for most people. But since it was, and again, I'm trying to be sensitive because this is a sensitive thing. And I do think that if you watch this movie, see that scene and turn it off right away, there is nothing wrong with you. And you have every right to do so because this is not okay.
No, and it's very uncalled for.
I had to wince. I went through it. And I actually, because I've seen it before, I got to the point. I went, oh no, we're here. We're at this point. And he started, and when he starts fondling, I'm like, oh, I don't know. But I hung in there. And then luckily it quickly, about maybe 15 seconds. And then
it's not long. Thankfully. It's
not long, right? It's very carefully done, but if you're going to do that, for me, and maybe just rationalizing me not hating this and condemning the entire movie because of it, which you could and be completely right and justified in doing. For me, I may be rationalizing, but it is an event that's impossible. No, this event, a monster with a human head doing this thing, is so outside the bounds of normal reality, where the scene of Irreversible happens every day, right? And it's an evil that exists and real. That's, I think, where that line for me is kind of drawn, where this is so absurd. I can place it in absurd category and just rationalize it and say, I understand that it's depicting something that's horrific and terrible, but since it's so absurd, I'm just going to put it up there for the 20 seconds that it's on the screen and then go back to enjoying my brutal, gross movie. so
this is when Herbert West comes in and confronts the doctor, and I was kind of laughing at the scene because so he's standing there.
Are we past that? You keep plowing forward.
No, we didn't pass that. That's the part where he's holding the head.
Are we past what we were talking about?
Yes, we had enough of that. I think.
Sure? Okay.
I'm sure. And he's holding the head, but you can see.
I'm sorry. What? Oh. I was going to ask if Tiff had anything else on that.
Oh, do you have anything else to say, Tiff?
No.
And then this is when I was laughing at the part where he's holding the head and Herbert West confronts him. And there's a part where you can, like, the body is really fat all of a sudden because the guy is in there, is under the gown for the head. And there's another guy there too.
It's so ridiculous.
That's why it's a close-up. You're not supposed to notice.
It's a big body. You can tell there's two people standing there. And I was a little surprised when all of a sudden all the naked guys and naked women get up and start attacking.
Well, 1 second before we move on to that, I do want to, because Herb and Hill have a bit of a conversation. Herb and Headless Hill have a little convo.
Headless Hill.
Say again?
Headless Hill. I like that.
That's right. Good old Headless. Headless Hill and Herb have a nice conversation. When Herb walks in, and I wrote in my notes, and then Herb saves the damn movie. Because again, he comes in at just the right time. Nothing actually happens, except some fondling. Ugh. But nothing actually happens with the head and, that. He walks in and he gives him like a tut-tut. Like, Mr. Hill, I'm astonished a man of science like you would be seen doing such a depraved thing. Like a naughty, naughty man. Like, how dare you? And he just blows by the dean, because the dean's standing there going, ah. He just walks by the dean, not even worried about that guy. It's glorious. Man, he is just chef kiss in this movie nearly the entire time. They kind of talk it out. They kind of finally, basically say that, kind of gives the little bit of exposition where, because he's going to be famous. Hill says he's going to be famous, and I'm going to write this all up in journals. Herb, of course, says, who will believe a talking head? Get a job in a sideshow.
I laughed on that. I was like, that was good.
It's really good. But this is, of course, when he realizes where the head says fatal mistake. The morgue awakes. And like you said, basically attacks everyone. Beforehand, the director had a big thing of cornstarch. said, everyone, just jump in the cornstarch real quick before you get on set. Just jump in. Make yourself all smoky and gross looking. That's all I got.
This is when you see Wes they tie him down to the bin and start lasering his head.
Yep. Because he wants to lobotomize Wes so he can then reanimate him.
That looks like a blowtorch. I was like, this is a laser? What? Either that, a blowtorch, or they glued a Christmas light to the end of a stick.
That's that's supposed to be Mr. Hill's new laser drill, and they set that up at the very beginning during the dinner.
Yeah.
When they start toasting, you got us this new laser drill that's gonna it's gonna push forward our scientific research to the next level, and it's gonna be amazing. Thank you for your donation. That's where this comes in. His laser cutter.
Not look like a laser.
No, that's because it wasn't.
It was a Christmas light on the end of a stick.
Probably. I mean, who knows how much money they had left over at this part.
They spent it all on blood.
Hey, fake blood a gallon isn't cheap, I'm sure.
It's cornstarch and or whatever.
You see him walking around town looking like stealing Christmas lights off of the people's homes. Look, we can't afford the damn thing. We just gotta get the Christmas lights.
we just need it.
Like the Grinch who stole Christmas, just kind of around.
This movie ends up getting grosser too, which I'm sure you like this coming apart, where you have all the zombies fighting them, and then Halsey recognizes that it's his daughter almost getting, that was captured and stuff, and in the situation. And he grabs Hill's head and starts squeezing.
Yeah. That was like, whoa.
Oof.
That was.
There goes more blood. Just keep adding.
That was gross.
It is. Anything that's like head crush is so gross and hard to watch. That's a tough one. And and again, clearly it's a prop head, right? But in context, you're in the movie, you're enjoying it, you're watching it, things are happening. Your brain will fill in the blank between prop head and real head, and it's effective.
I would put a mask over like a styrofoam head, and he was like,
right, exactly. And actually, what's really what's scary about that is you hear like the creaking, like skull creak, like that. The audio of that is really unsettling because if he was just pushing it together, it wouldn't be as unsettling if you didn't hear the.
So the next part really confused me. So Wes ends up getting all of a sudden you have a dead body and you have it looks like an intestine jumps out of the guy's stomach.
Yes.
Is this alien? What's going on?
Yeah, like you said, and it grabs Wes and starts choking him and wraps around his face, his body, and then
that's a long intestine, by the way.
The long intestine. The intestine is long.
But like that,
it's long as hell.
10 feet across the room.
I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure
it's very, very long. It's
okay, fine.
It's like
fine. I'll give it to you. Okay.
That was the part that I actually believed when I saw the intestine. I couldn't believe that it was coming to life, but I could believe. Yeah, you're right. It is pretty damn long. I forget what it is, but it's long as hell.
Well, there's two moments that you kind of skimmed over. One, because your favorite character, the cop, is when after the head is crushed, the dean throws it into the hallway and almost decks the cop coming back after his air quotes break around with his magazine. And then he just looks down, looks up, and runs away. You, sir, are good at nothing. I hope you didn't get paid. And then what happened?
That's what he thought.
What happens is that the Hill's body. So yeah, Hill's. Hang on, sorry. Right. So Dean has head. He's crushing. Right. Hill's body is trying to pull the Dean off of the head. See where we're going here? So what Herb does, he screams, overdose! Puts two syringes into Headless Hill. Headless Hill, with the overdose, starts skitzing out. That allows Dean to crush the head and throw it at our favorite cop.
But then did he get this? He just pulled it out of his back pocket?
Yeah, it was in the room because Headless Hill had stole all the all the stuff.
He had it all sitting there. That, of course, is when it very comically burst open like a Monty Python sketch.
Okay, I didn't realize it was his body that burst open. I thought it was just one of the bodies.
That's Headless Hill's body. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's when the large intestine comes out and grabs Herb.
I knew it was Headless Guy. It still didn't make sense.
I didn't. I think I was just suffering through oh God, this movie's almost over. It's almost over. Yay! That's what's going through my head because I kept pausing the movie. But how much more of this crap is left?
He kept pausing it to see how much time was left.
Okay, I did laugh at this part when West is getting choked by the intestine. He puts something in the bag and throws the bag at Dad and says, "Here," and he gives him his note while he's being choked to death.
Right. Here's my notes.
The research.
Yeah, don't let my life be for nothing. Here's the notes. Continue the research. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it was stupid and funny.
Don't let his life be in vain.
Oh, that's not the most unbelievable part is coming up.
Well,
that part
no.
Oh.
Well, hold on. So, but there's also I do want to just make one other quick note. I really like the attention to detail this movie takes, because at the very beginning, when Herb and Dan are looking for fresh bodies, they're kind of going through the ones in the morgue, and they're like, shotgun blast to the head, and this one's rotten. All of those people are the ones who animate, and they all have, like, one's burnt, one has a shotgun blast on its head. So they're all basically what was set up, an hour beforehand, which I think is a really good.
The lady from the beginning that they're like working on her chest.
Yep.
She was in there. I recognized her boobs.
Yeah, that's fair. God, hey, listen. All right, I did not, but I figured she was one of the maniacal. Yeah, so now we're at the point where Dan and Meg are trying to escape. What about, was it this point that you found ridiculous?
No, it's getting there.
So
this
Dan and Meg, yeah, go ahead.
Getting attacked on the elevator. I mean, one, it's kind of odd that the whole floor is empty, but whatever. That's not the part that I found ridiculous. The part that's coming up.
Attacking. The whole floor is empty.
Yeah, this is pretty much just kind of going through. They fighting off the monsters, as I put it. This is all this is really good. It's very desperate, right? They're trying to get out.
This was good. Like,
yeah, this
you
is
have
all,
him.
Yeah.
Fighting the zombies, trying to protect Meg. I mean, he grabs a freaking axe at one point out of from the place that they have it on the don't break break the glass. Grabs an axe. He takes out the zombie. Like, this is all believable in the sense of what's happening. Like, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And doesn't Meg get choked or something?
Yeah, Meg gets choked by Crispy. Crispy starts choking Meg. Dan can't get her arm off, so he runs to some place to grab an axe a fire axe from like a.
He doesn't run that, but the way it bothered me, the way because wasn't he in the elevator with her?
Yes.
And so it was almost like he was like, "Oh, excuse me, pardon me, I have to get an axe." Yeah. Excuse me, pardon me, now I have to cut off your arm. Bam! Like,
and the arm's shaking.
It was just so weird how he was just so slow about it.
And I laughed at this part because in the arm, like, it's sitting, like, you can, like, it's supposed to be an arm, but there's one part where the arm goes down into the puddle, because that's where the arm was sticking out of the guy had put his arm through the hole in the floor and was shaking his arm up and down.
Yep.
Stop ruining the magic for me.
There was no magic in this movie, babe.
The magic of Hollywood.
The magic.
The magic of motion pictures.
Why did that remind me of Andrew Ryan just now?
That was a purposeful 1930s.
That's what I heard. I was like, but you could just see because there's part of the arm that kept sticking past it, but you could tell it was just part of the the prosthetic or the makeup, because you could it was you could tell, like, I don't know, just enough. I'm like, yep, his arm's he's coming out the hole.
Yeah, fine.
Why waste money on an animatronic arm when you can just have a guy stick it through a hole and be like, "Rah!" and
shoot it at an incredibly low angle with the hopes that no one sees the hole. Right.
Add more blood.
Well, that's the thing. Every time that there's a scene in this movie where somebody's sticking through a hole, they just put a bunch of blood, like you're saying, a bunch of blood around him. Like, oh, yep, he's to hide it. Because the part that was unbelievable is that when he comes downstairs, he's covered in blood. He's carrying Meg. And they let him go in an operating room and try to save her. And I'm like...
And she's only wearing a shirt.
Like, this is the part where the police would be like, come with us, sir. We'll take her. You're coming with us.
But didn't he give her his shirt? So isn't he, like, shirtless? Or does he have
He had a
t-shirt on. Yeah, like a t-shirt on, yeah.
But still, like, what part of them aren't going, sir, why are you covered in blood? Sir, what the fuck just happened? Can we get security over here? Oh, we need to take this guy away.
He's special. Remember, he can do CPR because it's all he did on her with CPR.
And that's it. And it ties to the beginning. It's all connected.
And the fact that the doctors are just watching him as he's trying to save her.
Well, no, I think they put a little the sticky things on them to measure heart rate, and I think they try to start an IV, but she's long gone, and that's just a reiteration from the beginning of the movie. It's a nice little bookend, but he has a solution.
Yeah, and then isn't there a second one? So dun dun dun.
There's 3.
There's 3 of these movies. Yes.
I know. Don't worry. There will not be another one on this podcast.
Nah, it's okay. I don't need to see any of else. But yeah, that's the last thing is that he whispers, "I love you." He sticks her with the reagent, goes to black, and then before the credits roll, you hear a scream, which means clearly it was a success. And that's the movie. That's Re-Animator, y'all.
Dun, dun, dun.
Applaud. And
what the fuck did we just watch?
Yep, that's what it says.
Because that's how I felt when this movie ended just now. And I got excited. The credits roll. I'm like, yes, I'm done.
There's a bunch of comic book adaptations from this. So if you ever want to do one of those, maybe for your show, you could do that.
No, I don't.
Why not?
I don't ever want to revisit this.
They're probably good. I don't know. I don't know who these companies are, but they're fine. This was followed up by 2 sequels, Bride of Re-Animator and then Beyond Re-Animator. One was in 1990 and the other in 2003.
I was surprised how late the other one was.
Yeah, clearly that's kind of like a cash in. I don't know anything about those other 2. They're probably very bad. Yeah.
Straight to video.
Yeah, and the other movie that again, Stuart Gordon's done a bunch of stuff, but right after this, he did another Lovecraft adaptation called From Beyond, which I mentioned at the beginning, which really is like the spiritual successor to Re-Animator. So if you enjoy this, watch From Beyond. It's more of the same. It's another Lovecraft story that's not about reanimating, but it's pretty good.
All right, and that brings us to Shelf Stacker Box. And Tiffany, why don't you go first?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe the stack. Because it's a possibility I could rewatch it, but I don't know. Let's go through the stats.
You'd be rewatching it alone. There's not any movie I want to put on while I'm editing. You put this on, I'm going somewhere else.
Like, if I'm in bad B horror movie mood, this is a movie I would probably put on it. Maybe skip that one particular scene.
Yeah.
And I forgot. And I'll go next. This is obviously going in the box. I have watched a lot of movies for this podcast so far, and this is one of the worst movies I've ever... Well, no. I have watched a worse movie than this, but different reasons worse.
What was it?
Garbage Pail Kids, but it wasn't for the podcast. That was a worse movie. This just grossed me out, and I didn't like it.
So did Garbage Pail Kids.
But that was gross because that movie's just terrible.
So was this.
This was better. I don't know how, but this movie's better. But go in the box. I never need to see it again, but... We watched it. It was a thing. It existed, and I'm good. How about you, Bill?
This is going to go on the shelf for me, and this should not be any surprise how much I like this movie. This, if you really said it really well. If you want just a wonderfully crafted B movie that you can literally, that's as funny as it is gross and is very well acted, very tight, trim screenplay, simple. It's a very simple movie. There's not a lot to it. With some just delightfully cheesy effect. Yeah, you have one really questionable scene in there that could really turn a lot of people off and cause them to completely write off the movie. Like I said in my long-winded thing before, you're within your right, and I don't blame you for that because that is a line for a lot of.
Skip that scene and be like, boop, boop, boop.
Yeah,
I know it
happens. Actually, if you're doing it on like YouTube, actually this movie is available for free on YouTube. Like that's how I watched it. You can watch it for free in its entirety.
We could have watched it on YouTube.
Yeah,
it was. Had commercials though.
Oh well.
Oh yeah.
I had to sign up for a week of Shudder to watch this movie.
I have a week of Shudder.
I not to get off field. I paid the one that's on YouTube for free is the expanded cut. I didn't want to watch the expanded. I want to watch the theatrical release, and that was like $2 I spent. So I spent the $2 on YouTube.
Expanded cut. What does that mean? They show you
so
more
they not to. Actually, what it is, when they did the R-rated version of this, they cut a lot of the gore, obviously, and they replaced it with cut scenes that kind of flesh out the story a bit more and add like side stories. But they're kind of hammered in. What the extended cut does is it keeps the gore and keeps those scenes. So it's kind of like the full everything Re-Animator, the full Re-Animator experience, if you want it. So it's not like it's more gore. It's I think
Mike just gave me this horrified look.
Yeah, and the one I saw online was like 100, like an hour 40 or something. Like, oh, that's too long. This is a trim, like under 90 minutes, I think. I forget how many minutes this is. I don't know.
It's under 90.
Yeah, 86. So it's under 90 minutes. It's a perfect length. If you can stomach the gore, which isn't that bad because it is so silly and so fun. And this is all performances. Like. And again, Jeffrey Combs is wonderful in his role. Barbara Crampton is phenomenal in her role. Even the guy who plays Dan is great. Even the dopey cop is great. Even though he's in 3 scenes and does nothing but get all turned on by boudoir or whatever he's reading. This is wonderful. This is definitely on the shelf, and it's in a special part of the shelf that my kid can't get into because no one needs for him to go in there and say, what's Re-Animator? That looks like a skate.
He never.
Oh, God.
Never needs to see this movie.
You'd be in so much
Oh, he can see this movie. He can see, when he's an adult, he can see this movie, and I'd have no problem with like, oh, dude, it's Re-Animator. Of course, it's nonsense. Don't let this affect your brain in any way, shape, or form. So this is absolutely going on the shelf. I really do love this movie, and I would absolutely, I would do this once every Halloween. This could be like an every Halloween kind of thing. If I drank, I bring people along over who do. Hey, we're gonna watch Re-Animator. Everyone else can drink beers. I'll drink Sody Pop, and we'll have a good time.
What you do is you also give us some chips and salsa too to go with the movie.
Yes, put a fake head in like the salsa, right?
A Re-Animator buffet.
That's
We got
it.
green juice over here.
That's great. Yeah, some ecto Kool-Aid, right? Ecto Cooler.
Which is UV Blue and Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, no, this would be something I would definitely like have like a movie night, gross movie night. We'll double feature this and From Beyond. It would be a really fun night of gross out horror.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good. You can watch Shudder all by yourself, Tiff, for that week. I got to cancel it in a week. Otherwise, they'll charge me $7.
I could recharge it again.
But, so this was actually brought to you because of Patreon, because people voted for this bullshit for me to watch.
We love you.
I don't right now. So Louis the Dog, you can go vote in our poll. Every month we do a poll. This current month poll is another pilot test episode. Decide what psychic show or detective show we're going to watch. Either Psych, Mentalist, Monk, or Veronica Mars. First episode, and we review it. So you can go vote in there. And Bill, where can people find you at?
Oh yeah, when I'm not watching headless people perform unspeakable acts on defenseless women, you can find me at A Gamer Looks at 40. If you've listened to this podcast, Mike has been gracious enough to talk about the show nearly every episode. I do appreciate that, but it's nearly every. What was that?
Every episode, long as I don't forget, which is not very often.
That's fine. I know I do appreciate that. The podcast is a retrospective on the history of games as told through the stories of people who live them. It's just a collection of stories based on different eras and systems and games. And it's trying to get to the heart and soul of the the medium, as opposed to like the nuts and bolts, which a lot of shows do. It's pretty unique. Had a lot of good interviews lately. We're just about to, I'm not sure when this is going to air, time paradox, but
this will air October 19th.
October 19th. Yeah, so we should be soundly through the Sega Genesis era at that point and going to play destinations unknown from there. So A Gamer Looks at 40 on Twitter. Follow, subscribe, and do all the podcast things.
You will see a link in the show notes, as always, every episode. So definitely go check that out. And want to give a shout out to our awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Welby, a.k.a. Mike Thornton's EP Bite the Blitz, song to Cool Kid Squad. You'll see a link in the show notes to his YouTube channel. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then we're on YouTube, finally. We've been on YouTube now for over a year, but yeah, finally. Only audio, but we're there.
We're there.
And hopefully we'll never cover another one of these movies ever again.
I don't think we will.
Shut up.
No, I did not. I would have been okay with Nightmare on Elm Street, because that's a good film. It's a good horror film.
I should have chose Dr. Giggles. That might have went head-to-head with Re-Animator.
What the fuck is that?
Have you ever seen Dr. Giggles, Bill?
No, I don't think I have.
You should watch it. It's sort of it's sort of like a horror comedy. He's a dentist.
Yeah, I'm good.
That sounds fun. Dentist,
That sounds fun, he
if
said.
there's a lot of teeth like pulling, that's a weird line for me.
He uses his drill a lot, and he has this weird.
I'm good. I already don't like the dentist. I don't need to see this crap.
I'm here for that. Yeah, very good. Yeah, and I would have been good with Poltergeist too. That's an excellent film, and so is, again, Nightmare on Elm Street's a classic. I tried, you know me.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to push you out of your comfort zone if I can. And I'm also going to do things that I think would make for a good episode.
Well, a lot of people actually wanted us to talk about this. They were like, she posted in the horror group, and people like, oh, Re-Animator. And then on Patreon, they voted Re-Animator. So people wanted us to watch this crap.
This is a beloved cult. This is a cult classic. This is
beloved
literally.
crap. I said this is beloved crap.
Yeah, this is a cult classic. This is absolutely in that genre, and for very good reason, which I hope I was able to convey and stand on the side of those who like this movie. And I hope I expressed your love for it accurately, because it's great. I love this movie.
Yeah, you did fine.
Oh, thank you.
You did better than we did.
I just wanted
He just wanted it to be over.
so that's all I think we need to say tonight. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.